She was only 12 years old, barefoot, clutching two hungry newborns against her chest. She walked aimlessly under freezing rain at 3 in the morning. Iris hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her little brothers, Noah and Elias, cried nonstop from hunger and cold. But the worst was what she was running from. No jacket, no direction, just one fixed thought. To get as far away as possible from that man who had posed as a father figure but had transformed into their worst nightmare. What happened next, no one could have imagined. A billionaire named Adrian Wolfe, returning from a late-night business meeting, noticed something shocking on the side of the road. A little girl collapsing in the rain, with two newborns clutched in her arms. What he did next, his wife's reaction, and the dark turn that came a few days later will leave you speechless. This isn't just a story of survival. It's a story of indestructible love, chilling betrayal, and a family born from ruins. Don't stop reading, because the final courtroom scene will break your heart. The wind cut through the silent city streets like a thin blade. Under the flickering light of a street lamp, a barefoot girl staggered forward, clutching two newborns wrapped in blankets too thin for the March cold against her chest. Her name was Iris. She was 12 years old, but carried on her shoulders a weight that even an adult couldn't have borne. Her little brothers, Noah and Elias, were twins born just 3 weeks ago. Their fragile bodies trembled, and Iris wrapped them tighter, humming a confused lullaby that her mother once sang, when the world was still a safe place. Their home had once been full of laughter, the smell of soup on the stove, the flickering light of candles. But cancer had taken their mother too quickly, leaving Iris with two newborns and a stepfather, Victor, who had taken refuge in alcohol from the first day of mourning. By now that man was no longer a parent, but a threat. Every evening the silence broke under the noise of bottles, overturned furniture, and screams filled with hatred. Iris had learned to recognize the signs of danger. The creaking of footsteps, the clinking of glass, the fury in his eyes. But the previous night had been different. Victor had grabbed Noah, brutally ripping him from her arms. The newborn had screamed, and something in Iris snapped. She had screamed, as loud as she could. A moment of hesitation was enough, and she took advantage of it to grab the twins and run. She knew he would come back looking for them, and next time he wouldn't hesitate. So she fled, into the darkness, into the unknown, with only a worn backpack, some powdered milk, and a promise in her heart. I'll protect them, at any cost. Her feet hurt on the frozen asphalt. Her arms ached from the weight of the newborns. Hunger gripped her stomach, but she kept walking. Every shadow seemed like him. Every distant siren made her quicken her pace. The city was a labyrinth full of dangers, and she was just a girl who wanted to disappear. Finally, exhausted, she collapsed in a forgotten corner of a city park, hidden behind overgrown bushes and rusty swings. She laid the twins on the backpack, divided the last portion of milk between two broken bottles, and fed them with trembling hands. Tears streaked her face as she watched them suck greedily. "What will I do when it runs out?" she whispered to the wind. No answer, only the creaking of the swing in the darkness, like a ghost. At dawn, Iris dozed off for a few moments, her back against the cold bark of a tree, her arms wrapped around the twins. She didn't even realize she was losing consciousness. And that's where everything changed. Adrian Wolfe, a cold and ruthless entrepreneur, was heading home in his electric car. But when he passed near the park and saw 3 motionless figures, he slowed down instinctively. He approached, and in a second he was out of the car. He managed to grab the girl just in time, as she collapsed unconscious, still clinging to her little brothers. The twin babies whimpered softly, their faces pale, their lips purple from the cold. "What the hell?" murmured Adrian, observing the bruises on the girl's face, the blood on her bare feet, and the way she continued to hold the newborns even in sleep. He looked around. No adult, no stroller, no shoes, nothing. His instinct took over. He lifted all 3 in his arms and carried them to the car, activating the speakerphone to call his wife, Marina, a former pediatric nurse. She now worked at a center for abandoned minors. "Mari, I need you. Right now. I'm coming home. With children." "What? How many?" she exclaimed. 3. A little girl, maybe 12 years old. 2 newborns. They're not hers, they can't be. But she's protecting them as if they were. Who were they? Why were they alone in a public park before dawn? And above all, what kind of monster could leave them in those conditions? At the Wolfe estate, a modern villa surrounded by centuries-old pine trees just outside the city, Marina welcomed them at the door with a whirlwind of blankets, warm wipes, and care. As soon as she saw the girl's swollen face and the newborn's frozen fingers, her eyes filled with tears. Inside. Immediately, she ordered in a firm voice. While Adrian laid the little ones on the sofa, Marina checked the girl's vital signs, gently cleaned her wounds, and wrapped her battered feet with warm bandages. "This child has lived through hell," she whispered. The first rays of sun filtered through the windows when Iris moved. She opened her eyes suddenly, panicking. She jumped to her feet, staggering. "Where am I?" she cried in a broken voice, scanning the room with eyes full of terror. "They're safe," Marina replied, pointing to a cradle next to the fireplace. "Your little brothers." Iris nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "You're safe now too," Marina added. But Iris didn't relax. She hugged her shoulders, her face tense. "Did you call the police?" she asked in a hoarse voice. Adrian and Marina exchanged a look. "No," he finally replied. "Not until we understand what happened." Iris began to speak, hesitantly, her voice trembling, not knowing if she could really trust them. But what she told changed the Wolfe family's life forever. The fireplace crackled softly, enveloping the room in a warm, golden light. But the warmth of the fire wasn't enough to melt the ice that Adrian felt in his chest, listening to the fragile voice of the girl, now huddled under a blanket. "My name is Iris," she finally said, never taking her eyes off the newborns. "They're my little brothers. We were with our father. But after Mom died, everything changed." Marina sat down next to her, gently squeezing her hand. Iris's words came out confused at first, then increasingly clear. The night screams, the broken bottles, the bruises that never healed. The night Victor, the stepfather, went completely insane and tried to rip Elias from her arms. "I screamed," Iris whispered, with an empty gaze. "So I ran away. We had nothing. But I couldn't leave him the babies. Never again." Adrian, standing by the door, felt his hands clench into fists. He had faced unscrupulous businessmen, dismantled entire corrupt boards. But nothing made him as furious as the idea of a man hurting his own children. "You did the right thing," Marina said. "You were incredibly brave, Iris." The girl's face contorted. "What if he finds us? He always said we were his, that no one would ever want us." Marina held her tight. "He was wrong. And you're not alone anymore." At that moment, a whimper rose from the cradle. Elias moved, waving his arms. Iris jumped up instinctively, taking him in her arms with a gentleness that left Marina speechless. It wasn't just instinct. It was love, experience, as if she was born to do it. "I feed them in turns," she murmured, grabbing the bottle Marina had just prepared. "If one wakes up, I let the other sleep. If they cry together, I sing." Her voice cracked. "You shouldn't have to do all this alone," Adrian said, taking a step forward. "You're just a child, Iris. You deserve to be protected." She looked at him, her eyes shiny but proud. "I don't matter. What matters is that you don't take them away. Please." In her gaze there was fear, pain, but also a surprising strength. A fire impossible to extinguish. Adrian understood in that moment that he didn't have just a frightened little girl in front of him. He had a fighter, a survivor. The next morning, the Wolfe house was filled with a silent but vigilant tension. Marina had arranged a visit from her friend, Dr. Eva Ricci, a specialized pediatrician. She arrived mid-morning, sweet gaze and notepad in hand, and immediately began examining the twins with expert precision. "They're malnourished but stable," she said after the checkups. "Iris has taken care of them better than many adults would. But she has bruises, untreated infections, total exhaustion. She needs food, rest, safety." Adrian nodded. "She'll have all that now." But almost interrupting that promise, the entrance intercom rang. "A delivery?" the housekeeper guessed. Adrian looked at the screen. His blood ran cold. A man was out there. Unkempt beard, red eyes, nervous pace like a caged beast. His voice echoed in the silence. "Let me in. I know you have my children. I want them back." No introductions were needed. It was Victor. "My God," Adrian whispered, taking a step back. "How did he find us?" Iris, who was holding Elias in her arms, heard the voice and froze. "It's him," she murmured. "He found us." Panic spread through the room like a tide. But Adrian was already in action. Take the children upstairs. Lock the room. Wait, Adrian, Marina shouted, but he was already out. He reached the gate and pressed the intercom button with an icy calm that hid the storm raging inside him. This is private property, he said sharply. Leave. Victor approached the camera. You rich people think you can take my family? I'll call the police. Those children are mine. They're not objects, Adrian replied, his voice firm as steel. They're human beings, and you'll never touch them again. Victor laughed, a dry, empty laugh. We'll see, he said, before walking away toward an old rusty pickup truck parked further ahead. Adrian remained at the gate even after the man disappeared. His heart beat like a drum. He knew men like Victor, cowards who only felt strong terrorizing the weak. And he knew it wouldn't end there. That evening, dinner was silent. Iris barely touched anything. She was huddled on the sofa, her gaze fixed outside the window. He'll come back, she whispered. We're ready, Marina told her, placing a hand on her shoulder. Tomorrow we'll request a restraining order. And Adrian has already called security. Cameras, motion sensors, everything. Iris looked at her, her lips trembling. What if it's not enough? Marina knelt beside her. Then we'll fight harder. Together. For the first time, Iris nodded. But none of them could imagine what would happen a few hours later. Just past midnight, while a storm hit the city and the Wolfe house slowly fell asleep, a figure moved through the shadows near the back fence. The rain covered his footsteps. The security system was installed, but not yet active. Victor knew the place. He was watching them. Upstairs, Iris woke up with a start. Not from a dream, but from instinct. Something was wrong. She slipped out of bed and ran to the nursery. Her heart pounded in her chest. The window was wide open. A gust of wind lifted the curtain. Julian's cradle was empty. Iris's scream pierced the silence. Her cry bounced through the hallway like lightning. Adrian and Marina jumped up, bumping into each other in the corridor. Iris was there, barefoot, trembling in front of the open window. He took him, she screamed. He took Julian. The window was open. I don't know how it happened. Call the police, Adrian yelled, running toward the surveillance system. Marina hugged Elias, who was starting to cry, frightened by the commotion, and with trembling hands dialed the emergency number. Stay with me, my love, Iris whispered, cradling Elias. We'll find your brother. I promise. Downstairs, in the study, Adrian stared in shock at the camera images. There, at 2:37, Victor appeared, soaked with rain, a crazed look. He had snuck in through the side gate, disabled the secondary generator that Adrian had postponed securing, and entered through an unlocked back door. On the video, he moved like a shadow toward the nursery and grabbed Julian as if he were a shopping bag. Damn! Adrian growled, but something didn't add up. Victor wasn't running away. He wasn't running toward the street or the woods. No, he was still there. Mari! Adrian yelled. I think he's still on the property. Iris was the first to leave the house, barefoot, soaked in seconds under the pounding rain. An impulse guided her toward the old tool shed at the back of the garden, the same one where she and the twins had hidden years before, during one of the stepfather's worst rages. She threw open the creaking door, and there, in the center of the room, kneeling and soaking wet, was Victor. He clutched Julian against his chest, whispering confused phrases. He looks so much like her, he murmured. Your mother. She left me. She took away the light. But you're still mine. Let him go, Iris said, her voice steady despite the wild beating in her chest. Victor looked up. His eyes were dark, full of something broken. You took them away from me. Do you really think these rich people love you? Do you think they'll protect you forever? Behind him appeared Adrian, completely soaked, his gaze blazing, his fists clenched. You just made your last mistake, he said in an icy tone. Victor didn't move, still holding Julian. Take one step and I swear. But he didn't finish the sentence. A whimper rose from the newborn's lips, who woke up trembling in his arms. In that moment, something cracked inside Victor. The innocence of that sound, the trust in his sister's gaze. His grip loosened, just for an instant, just enough. Adrian lunged forward, grabbing him by the arm while Iris ripped Julian from his chest and ran away. The rain mixed with mud, blows, rage. The two men rolled on the ground. A few minutes were enough, and the squad cars arrived to separate them. Officers handcuffed Victor, reading him his rights while he shouted disconnected words into the darkness. Julian was safe. Hours later, when dawn gently spread over the Wolfe estate, Iris sat on the back of the house, wrapped in a blanket, Julian asleep in her arms. Elias slept on Marina's shoulder, while Adrian watched the horizon. "Is it over? Really?" Iris asked in a thin voice. Adrian nodded. "We've already initiated the restraining order. We'll file for full custody. And with the surveillance footage, he won't be able to come within a mile of you." Iris lowered her gaze to Julian, stroking his forehead. "I was afraid of losing him." "It didn't happen," Marina said, squeezing her hand. "You saved him. Again. And now," Adrian added, "it's time you received something in return too." He took a thin folder from his jacket and handed it to her. Inside were the legal guardianship documents, the beginning of the adoption process. Iris's name next to Marina's and Adrian's. Not as a simple guest, but as a daughter. As family. Iris brought a hand to her mouth. "Why you want to adopt me?" "If you'll let us," Marina said with a smile. "All three of you. Forever." Iris burst into tears, nodding without being able to speak. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen her. Not out of duty, but out of love. Weeks passed. The adoption process was quick, thanks to Adrian's legal team. The story of the brave girl who saved her brothers spread everywhere. Offers of help came from neighbors, doctors, teachers. Iris started school. She made friends. The twins grew stronger every day. One Sunday morning, the entire Wolfe family, Adrian, Marina, Iris, Elias, and Julian, stood before a smiling judge. A bang of the gavel and everything became official. Iris Wolfe, a new name, but also a home. Upon their return, a surprise party awaited them. Balloons, music, a cake. In the center of the room, a photograph framed in gold. Iris with her little brothers in her arms. Below, a plaque. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear second-hand shoes and carry hope in their hearts. Iris looked around, Marina and Adrian, Elias and Julian chasing balloons. And she understood something she thought impossible. She was safe. She was loved. She was home.